Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Very excited to see some of our board members. I know our new superintendent of schools will be joining us. As we are, still processing the tragedy that we experienced as a community this weekend with the loss of one of our students. I'm very grateful that George is here with us this evening. His words are both therapeutic and comforting, and we're happy to have you with us. George is a licensed family counselor. He is a consultant to the New Jersey Coalition for Loss, and George is a longtime friend of East Brunswick Public Schools. So thank you again for being with us tonight.
Just as a kind of an asterisk here, the conversation is being recorded. So if you just keep that in mind, you may not want to ask a question, you can ask it later. I just don't want anybody to be surprised about that. And when I was asked whether or not it could be recorded, I said absolutely, because it's really important that the message get out, that the words get out, that the ideas get out. And sometimes families can't get out, right? So there are a lot of situations which they can't. I applaud you guys for making the effort. Must be a really bad night on TV tonight on Monday nights, because you made the effort to come out, which is terrific. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. So I was here a year ago. We've been together before. It was February 5th, 2025, so it was just a year. And we talked similarly about what do kids need, what happens when they don't get what they need. If things start to go wrong, how would I know? And if things are really going off the rails, what can I do about it? Is it ever too late? So we're going to talk about that. We talked about that then. We're going to talk about it a little bit differently, I think, tonight. Let me make some comments first, because Joyce and I have talked about this. It's the idea of the tragedy that this district suffered over the weekend. In all due care, love, and respect, I feel badly for the family, for the friends of that family, and the reality is I feel badly for the community of East Brunswick schools. And the reason I say that is because one of the values that sometimes is missed is community. Whether it be a school community or the district community, we are healthier in a community than we are isolated and alone. And one of the things that we look for is our kid becoming more and more isolated, staying in the room, not coming to family dinner. So I bring that up because I think that because of what happened, with whatever the particulars are, there are going to be some children and staff in this school district who are going to need to be in a period of grieving and in a period of healing. Both of those things are absolutely necessary for us as human beings to go forward. We have to be able to grieve when loss of any kind happens, not just a death loss, but a loss. And we have to be able to heal from it if we get stuck in it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that for you. I'm willing to take questions around it, and I'm certainly willing to take any comments or any questions about what gets exchanged with you this evening. I'm really pleased that you're here. So we did talk about these big concepts called buffering. I know I've already started, but let me back up a second. It's really hard work to be a parent. The pay is terrible. And sometimes life circumstances make it really hard. And I want to talk about all of that, and the reason I want to is because I don't want to hold in my mind an image of what you are as a family, because I'm probably wrong. Circumstances within a family create stressors within a family, and as a result of that, our kids carry stressors, and as a result of that, it interferes with their interpersonal relationships, and sometimes it interferes with them doing well academically, simply because of the stressors. I'm going to venture out on a skinny limb here. I can also tell you that just from a distance, because I don't have a direct involvement, the culture that goes on in our communities could anger us, but it really overwhelms our babies. They get confused by it. And they try to read who you are in this and what you believe and what you think, and sometimes it just creates other kinds of problems for them. I think what we're going to talk about tonight addresses some of that. So here are 2 or 3 things that might happen. You may hear nothing new. And what I'm going to say to you, good for you, because it means you're doing well, in spite of the fact that you think you screwed your kids up when they were younger. The second thing that could happen is you could hear something and not really be willing to trust it. You might say, that doesn't seem right, that doesn't feel right. If you want to talk to me about that, raise a question. If you want to talk to me on the side when we're done, you can do that as well. And the third thing is, you could hear something new that turns a light bulb on and says, oh my God, I never saw it that way. And if that's the case, then what you do is you leave here with a kind of a refined way of looking at your role as a dad or as a mom. You might even be able to be a benefit to a neighbor, somebody else, an adult in your family, a friend. Your godchildren may benefit because of that. Your grandchildren may benefit because of that. Because what we're going to talk about tonight is the science of the human condition, the science of how we're structured, the science of why we respond the way we do. And I want to make sure that I put a flag on this. All behavior is purposeful. Even the behavior you don't like. It all has a purpose. The dilemma is, what is that purpose? Especially when your kids' behavior, now when I say behavior, it could be their physical behavior, or they could shut down, or they could be anxious, or they could be tearful, or they could be quiet, or they can be isolated. It's all behavior. And now we want to discern what is normal developmental behavior, and what is it that we should say, what's going on? I need to step into that. Stepping to that is something called buffering. Buffering is what adult human beings do. Sometimes with each other, they protect each other, and sometimes, most times, it's what they do with their children. It's being able to allow your kids to grow into these life situations without being overwhelmed by them, by being hurt by them. And we do that sometimes by pulling our kids back, saying no to their request that they do or be somewhere. That's buffering. And it's a really important concept. We'll talk about it, if anybody who was here last year, we'll talk about it in terms of penguin chicks. Because penguin chicks are a great example in the animal kingdom about buffering. The other thing we'll talk about is creating sanctuary. Now, sanctuary is a place where you feel safe. And you're going to hear me say over and over again tonight that based upon Maslow's hierarchy, safety and security are a critical attribute, and in the absence of that, if your kids are always being under threat, they won't be able to manage in a healthy way their own little lives or bigger lives or big lives. In fact, I'm even willing to go out on that limb again and say to you, if you don't feel safe, either physically or emotionally, it will have an effect on how you interplay with other people in your lives. Safety is critical. Sanctuary is the ability to create an environment in which a kid always feels safe. Regardless of what they're doing, regardless of the circumstances, they feel that here, somebody's got my back. Here, somebody will listen to me. Here, somebody's on my side. Because when you're a kid, you should always feel somebody's got your back. In the absence of that, many of our children either will become aggressive, I got to take it on myself because nobody's got my back, or they may even melt under that because they just don't feel that they have the power, the influence to be able to make this situation better for themselves. Part of my work with teachers is to talk about how the classroom can become a sanctuary for every kid who occupies a seat, regardless of the level of operation, regardless of their success in the classroom, regardless of who their family is, what part of town they're from. This kid knows that in this classroom, I belong, and we're going to talk about belonging as another one of those attributes to human safety. And then we're going to talk about this issue of soothing. Our kids, and I'm going to suggest that even when we get older, this never goes away. Our children need 3 things. They need to be seen, which means they matter. Kids who are neglected, kids who are ignored, they begin to conclude, I don't matter. Let me give you a story about that. Back in the 50s, there was a pediatrician and an author by the name of Benjamin Spock. Dr. Spock wrote a bestseller, 500,000 copies on how to raise babies, how to raise children. Now, let me tell you the backstory. Back in the 50s, and I'm believing it's different today, but I know in some circumstances it's not. Back in the 50s, the sole responsibility of raising children was the mother. Fathers very seldom jumped in and did anything with that. Now, if that's the situation in your house, I'm willing to talk to you about that, but I'd rather not put that on the recording for tonight. What he was trying to do was to save moms from being burned out. That was his goal. So he developed what was known as the let them cry it out idea. You put your baby to bed and you never go back in. You just let them cry it out and they'll go to sleep. And this is what it looked like. Dr. Spock said that on the very first night, when you put them to bed and you close the door, quoting him, they will cry furiously, but let it be. Do not go back in. And ultimately, they'll go to sleep. On night 2, he said, you won't have to worry about that furiously crying. They won't cry as long or as loud. Let them be, they'll go to sleep. And on the 3rd night, you probably won't have any problems at all. That baby will figure out, now we're talking about infants from birth to 1. These babies will figure out, oh, you want me to go to sleep? Okay, I'll do that. But here's the reality of what happened. And we know it now from our neurologists. The conclusion that baby reached is, nobody's coming for me. So what the hell difference does it make if I cry? Imagine you being in a desperate situation. The only language you had was crying. You didn't know why you were crying, whether it was a pain or a diaper or whether it was you were lonely or scared of the dark. And remember, not a lot of cognition going in here. We're talking infants. But what they did know is, I don't like the way I feel. I don't feel connected. We're going to talk about attachment. And then you conclude, I'm in it by myself. Nobody's coming. That sets a pattern for human babies in which they don't seek help. They don't reach out for help. They don't get a lot of soothing from help. So what Dr. Spock thought he was proving, I think he proved the opposite. Soothing means you need to be seen. Somebody's going to come for me when I need it. I need to feel safe and secure. I'm in this crib, this jail cell all alone. And when I'm upset, mom or dad or grandma, somebody that smells familiar to me, feels familiar to me, comes and brings me comfort. Those 3 things are still things that our children need today, regardless of their age. They need to be seen, they need to be secure, and they need to be soothed when, in fact, they are really upset. How many of you, honestly, don't want to be soothed when you're upset, regardless of your age, regardless of your circumstances? You don't like to be in your unsettledness all by yourself. And if nobody comes and says, with an arm around you, how are you? How are you doing? Is there something I can do? Oh my God, you look so upset. You will eventually seek that out because of the communal nature of who we are as human beings. So our work as parents there that we started a year ago is to be able to understand our kids' behavior differently, and how can we shape it in a way that fits our family rules, our family values. So we're going to talk about that as well. A community conversation. You're going to see what comes up frequently is this issue of community, because what we've, and I'll give you an example from the other professional hat that I wear. When I was going through my postmaster's program, I had to make a decision whether or not I wanted to be an LPC, a licensed professional counselor that usually does one-on-one work versus a marriage and family therapist, which usually works with the whole family. I chose the whole family because my 30 years working in special education, I would sit at IEP tables, I would meet with moms and dads whose kids were not doing well, and what I recognized is it's really isolating to be upset, and when you're in the presence of a family and the family is supporting you, oh my God, what a great feeling. In my work today, although I see individual people, there's a magic in helping families get the communication right or better. Having to be heard, recognizing, seeing somebody in the room kind of for the first time, respecting what they're telling you even though it makes you uncomfortable. That's community, and we're going to do more community work as we go on in the next hour. We talked before about Maslow's hierarchy, right? So Abraham Maslow was wondering what are the things that a human being needs in order to get to the best of who they are. At the top of his pyramid, it's called self-actualization. And what it means is that's your A game. When you get there, you bring your A game. Your career goes well, your people skills go well, you feel good about who you are. But you've got to go through some developmental stages to get there. And here's where it's really important, I think, my bias, that moms and dads or caregivers, even if you're not the mom or dad, that caregivers need to understand what they need to add to the soup called kid in order that it reaches the best soup that you can get. Here's where we're going to start. Maslow says that a human being's physiological needs need to be addressed first. You got to have enough food, you got to have enough water, and you got to have enough shelter. That makes sense to me. In the absence of that, we know that medical term, we fail to thrive. When you're always hungry, when you're always thirsty, when you're homeless, where you don't have shelter, it has an effect on who you are and what you can do. So he says, let's take care of that first, and we'll think about it, because I've talked to several of you in the room earlier about your babies. Let's go back to when your babies were babies. Right? Let's talk about right out of the womb. Let's talk about in the birthing room, in the recovery room. You and the father or you and the mother are there with this newborn baby. Here's what never happens. Oh, sweetie, look at this sweet bundle of joy. Oh, my God. We are so fortunate. Gee, I wonder how we can screw this one up. Never happens. But what we know is, because of circumstances, and reaction to circumstances, sometimes our children get to the other end or to an end, and we know they're just out of sorts. We know they're, my term, dysregulated. How'd that happen? And what do we need to do in order to get them back on the rails? So we know that when your babies are born, you take care of all of their physiological needs. That's the pampering, and later we're going to talk about that's the beginning of some moms, mostly moms, and dads, anxiety about being a parent. We can track it back to that birth. It's kind of like, I'm ready. Oh my God, what do I do with this kid now that he's here, now that she's here? Baseline, organic, food, shelter, water. And then they need to feel safe. Certainly nobody would disagree that if there is child abuse going on, we need to intervene to fix that. Somehow we need to make sure that that mom and dad and that child are not in this cycle of abuse. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. So that's one kind of safety. Now, even when there's not that kind of abuse going on, for those families, perhaps somebody in the room, certainly somebody in our community, if there's not enough food, then it does create a safety issue because you don't feel secure, because you don't have shelter. So you can see where safety and security is kind of a manifestation of that first level. But here's the one I really want to focus on, and it'll come up because it's my bias. I think I'm right, and that's emotional security. That in interactions with other human beings, I feel respected, honored, and I'm safe, No name calling. No taunting and teasing, because that disrupts the security that one feels. It creates a threat. And we know when human beings are threatened, they're going to do one of three things. They're going to fight back. Your kids are going to become disrespectful. They're going to flee. They're going to lock themselves in the room. You won't see them. They won't even come for dinner. Or they will shut down and go mute, and they won't share anything with you. It's almost a paralysis of emotion. So we want to avoid situations in which our kids feel not insecure, but not safe emotionally. Now, here's where I'll empty the room pretty quickly, maybe. That's about you. That's about you if you're watching the recording of this. It's not about the kids. It's about your behavior. It's about your attitude. It's about your anger. It's about your frustration. You could have reasons for your anger and frustration. We'll talk about that. But it's usually in this thing of, I am overwhelmed as the adult, and therefore that then comes out in the environment in which I am raising my child or my children. This issue of emotional safety, emotional security. And then there's this. Connection. Feeling like you're a part of something. Feeling that if you're absent, somebody says, "Where's George?" You know, some of the kids that I see in the practice will say things to me like, and if this doesn't apply to your family, let it go. But kids will say things to me like, "You know, if I disappeared tomorrow in my family, nobody would miss me." Let's go back. Kids need to be seen. That child doesn't feel seen at all, won't even be missed, not connected. Now, what are the reasons for that? There are reasons, because all behavior is purposeful. Some of the reasons are that parents are working a lot. They're doing the best to cobble this together. They want the older sib to watch, or the next door neighbor's watching and doing childcare, or grandma or grandpa's doing childcare. But mom and dad are really on this treadmill because they got to go and they make money to hold this family together. Or they work because it's easier for them than being a parent. I have a theory about that. I have a theory about workaholics. My theory is that human beings, adults, will spend most of their time where they feel most competent. They don't like to spend time in places where they don't feel competent. It's kind of like if I were to say, I'm going to pick on the guys in the room, if I were to say, "Hey, listen, later on tonight at around 8 o'clock, we're going to have a dance marathon here. So you guys will just get up and show your dance skills." You're like, 8 o'clock, huh? 7:55, I'm out of here. Because it makes you uncomfortable, right? That's a simple explanation, but sometimes parents don't know how to do the thing parent. They're uncomfortable with doing the thing parent, and they'll spend some more time over there than they do here. That erodes the sense of belongingness and connectedness. Sanctuary classrooms make sure that everybody feels connected. Here's a big statement. Applies to all of you in the room. You will only do well personally and professionally if you do people well. If you don't do people well, it's going to be a problem for you because there aren't a lot of interactions that don't require people. Friendships, workships, working within the family, that's what this belonging is all about. It's about us being able to be comfortable in relationship with other people. So you can see where, and I'll refer back here to Maslow's hierarchy, you can see here where before they get the self-esteem that you want them to have, "Oh, my kid's got poor self-esteem," they got to be able to develop through those other stages. And it's not always sequential or lateral. It can be a mix. But they got to have that to build this internal structure for themselves, their inside world. Comments or questions? Who have I confused? Thank you for staying. Because you want to know, right? You're here because the thing that says is when you're worried about your kid. I didn't even ask who's worried about their kid. If you weren't worried, you wouldn't be here. So you do worry about your children. And what I'm saying to you is, me too, for some of your kids. School does too, worry, concerned about some of your kids. But when we step back and take a look at it, I believe we have this power and influence as a mom and dad with these big hearts that we have, that we in fact can change our behaviors and see a corresponding change in our kids' behaviors. There they are. Talked about those penguin chicks. Now, very quickly, and I'll reference them again later, and this will all come together for you. Hostile environment. If there are any attorneys in the room, sorry. Penguins created hostile environments before attorneys did. Hostile environment meaning if you're not careful, you will die. It's not just unhealthy, you will die. Now, they're very adaptive, and here's the good news about your children. They're adaptive too, just like you. Like you wanted to do this and something happens, okay, I can't do that, I'm going to do this instead. You adapt to the situations in day to day. These little guys are adaptive too, right? They've got these layers of fat, that keeps them warm. They've got these little fur coats on, that keeps them warm. And they're born into it, and they are able to survive and to thrive. So what's the point? The point is when the weather gets really bad, when the environment gets really toxic, and I'll reference that in terms of home environments, neighborhood environments, classroom environments, perhaps for you a work environment, where it's really toxic, then it becomes a threat. And for little ones like these chicks, like your chicks at home, the chicks that you're here because of, if somebody doesn't intervene, they will die. So what do the penguins do? The adult penguins show up. That's the buffering, right? They just show up. And they create this huge circle in the Antarctic. And all these little chicks are pushed right into the middle of this big circle, and they're crowded in, and then through the combined protection, buffering, heat of their bodies, they all hunker down. Chicks survive. Infirms survive. Older penguins survive, because what they know is, without community, they will die. Now, here's another really nice thing about this big circle. Those younger, healthier penguins on the outside, they get freezing cold. It's cold. It's 40 below. So what they do is they march into the circle, and the warmer penguins march outside, and we call that in the shelter of each other. Sometimes we have to look out for each other. We're going to talk about this too. If you are fortunate enough, because I think it is good fortune, I think it is healthier for kids. If there are two of you parenting, whew, that's some relief. If there's only one of you parenting, so much harder. If you're a single parenting, whether you're mom or your dad, and you have extended family who come and help, good for you. If you're alone in it, woof, this is hard. If you live in a neighborhood where neighbors, they're in the shelter of each other, and they say, hey, listen, I'll take care of your kids tomorrow, give you a break, woof. If you don't have that, and it's all on you, really, really hard. So there are some legitimate logistical reasons why some moms and some dads really are dragging, are frustrated, can get angry, their health gets impaired simply because there's so much responsibility and they don't have a relief or a partner to share the burden. So the penguins teach us that. Any penguin questions? All right. So then let's talk about rats. Now the rats, these guys, teach us another amazing story. So this is Mama Rat up here. These are her pups, rat pups. And the researchers who work with the rats recognize the fact that when they go into the family cage to take one of the pups out and put that pup over here, that pup freaks out. That pup starts to shake. If you check their cortisol level, cortisol is the stress hormone. Their cortisol level is up. They do not like being separated out from the brood or from mom. Now, when the researcher puts that pup back, there's a couple of different behaviors from mom. The best behavior is this mom immediately goes over to start to nuzzle and lick that pup. Calm them down. Pups, like children, they can't calm themselves down from the outside. They're little. They don't have that yet control of the regulation. But moms do, and this mom did, and this mom licks and licks and licks. Now, for those people out in the community and for you here, I'm not suggesting you go home and lick your children, because that would be very creepy. And then we'd have to call DCP&P, and that gets like really messy. However, there are licking behaviors that you have. Now, some of you are willing to share what some of those licking behaviors are, but some of them are so intimate, they're so personal, they're so sweet, you want to keep it to yourself. You're afraid that somebody else is going to yell at you like, really, you do that with your kids to calm them down? What are some of your licking behaviors at home? What do you do when your kid is just dysregulated? Crying, stomping, melting on the floor. What do you do? What do you do? So one of the best ways, right, is to hug them if they allow you to do that, because some kids in the midst of meltdown don't want to be touched, right? They just don't. So therefore, one of the things I say to moms and dads is, ask your kid if it's okay for you to get closer. Sit on the floor with them. Sit closer to them. And if you are allowed to give them a hug, it goes back to what we said earlier. That's soothing behavior. How do you soothe your babies in the midst of that? This mom knows they can't do it on their own. Now, let me take this experiment a little bit further. So, not all moms are lickers. Let me back up a second. Is there another licking behavior you want to share? Hugging is one. I'm worried about your children right now because you got no good licking behaviors. Can, right? Gently. It's touch. Touch is critical, soothing. You rub them. In fact, you remember this, right? When you had your baby was an infant and they were you'd be doing this, wouldn't you? In fact, even when you didn't have a baby, people say, what's wrong with you? You're just like doing this because you're so used to doing that, right? It's kind of like, what are you doing? Because that's soothing behavior. It's rhythmic. They love that. Good licking behavior. What else you got?
If it's been a very tough, emotionally very tough day, then we share the bedroom, so I go sleep with her so that she feels safe.
Love it, right? So if you've got a kid who's really melted down, it's really a tough day listen, it could be a variety of reasons, and you might look at her day and say, what's the big deal? It was no big deal. For her, a big deal. So when she's able to go and get cuddled in a safe place, her bed, you can ask, can I lay with you? Can we sing together? Can I play some music? Do you want a story, right? All licking behavior. But what does it require from you? A lot of patience. Because typically when you're frustrated, you're not patient. When you're frustrated, you're saying, come on, what's the big deal? No, I'm not leaving the light on. That's crazy. Go to sleep. Not a sanctuary, not a connectedness, not a security. None of that's going to work, except if you keep doing it, your baby will fall asleep, and in their mind they'll say, nobody's coming for me. And when nobody's coming for you, you learn survival skills that you don't like. Survival skills in our children are usually things we don't like. Lying. Oh my God, my kid's a compulsive, chronic liar. There's always a reason for that behavior. Usually it's because the parent doesn't accept the truth. You don't like the truth. It can be simple, like, did you do your homework? Yeah, I did. How come you got a 0 for homework? You told me you did your homework. You lied to me. Well, they told you that for a reason. So you can use that as an opportunity to figure out what's the reason. Say, listen, I remember you saying you did, but I'm really curious now. What did you think was going to happen if you told me the truth. That's good licking behavior. That does the safe, secure. They are the things that don't require a master's degree in anything. They just require an understanding and a patience to deliver it, because the payoff will be huge. The positive payoff will be huge. So not all moms, not all rat moms had licking behavior. Some of them, when that pup came back in the cage, they ignored the pup. Just ignored him. And that pup didn't calm down. Now, here's something that I want you to understand in terms of academic performance. For that pup, where the mother paid attention, and I'm not letting dads off the hook here, when a parent pays attention and is able to bring soothing and understanding, this pup became more curious, and we love curious learners, became more curious, did mazes better, was more attentive to mom's affection, all those really good things. When that pup didn't get it, that pup literally became just more chronically unavailable. So what happens? Sometimes mom is not attentive. So what the researchers did was, they noticed that this one mom was not attentive, so they took the pup away from this mom, put it over here with the licking mom, and that baby calmed down. So I say to teachers all the time, okay, maybe there's some chaos at home, or maybe there's some situations at home that are really disruptive, but if you create sanctuary, you can be the one to bring that calming, and that's all that's needed. When they're with you, they feel safe and they feel calming. So these rat pups teach us that parents are really important in helping kids regulate. And when you help kids regulate, they stay inside their bodies. They don't go, quote, crazy. What does that sound like? You're out of your mind. Well, you're not out of your mind. You may be out of your body in the moment, but this gets you back in your body to be more calm. So penguins and rats teach us a bunch. So this is a slide from last February. And what it tells us is, because we have this big brain, our babies need more time to develop. Like if you're another mammal, you could be a deer, a dog, a kitten. Give them a few hours, they're up and about. Give your new baby a few hours and they're still your little baby. But because this has to develop in order for them to survive, they need absolute safety and security from us and from our child care providers, family members who may be a little grouchy. They need protection from them. Babysitters who don't give attention, they need some protection from them. So you can see that we need to create environments in which these babies get extensive care, attention, soothing, and teaching throughout childhood and adolescence. Sorry, you parents of high school kids, they still need you. In spite of the fact that they think you're smart, they're smarter than you are, and you don't know anything, they still need what you can bring to the conversation and what you can bring to the family. If you're healthy enough yourself to bring it. But if there are reasons why you're dysregulated all the time, that's not helpful to them at all. So a lot of this work is really about how can I help moms and dads, how can I help teachers, coaches, support staff, how can I help adults recognize the influence that they have for children, because children need more of something through their adolescence. So if you look, let me get it. So children rely heavily on parents for nourishment. We know that. We talked about that. That's the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. They need protection. We talked about safety and security. And they need social learning, which is connectedness and belonging. So this, whoever wrote that, I borrowed it, but whoever wrote it, they laid out Maslow's hierarchy all over again in terms of what do our babies need to survive and then to thrive. I love this picture, I'll tell you why. Because we talk about safety, that little one is sandwiched between, I'm going to assume, mom and dad. And what's going on there? They got touch. Whether it be a hug, whether it be a hand on the shoulder, they got touched because that communicates safety, or it does not. If your kid is used to getting swatted, they're backing up. If your kid is used to being pinched to teach them a lesson, they're backing up because it hurts. Their little brain, they don't have to think about it. Their brain says, danger, danger. So the more we take a look at our behavior relative to our kids, you're going to see a different kid in your household. That's not a mistake. It's in there because what I'm looking for is, can you see where the examples of the rat pups and the penguin chicks and the moms and dads, you can see where it fits. And if there's a gap somewhere in your kids, it's never too late, ever too late to go back and backfill it. And we'll talk about how you can do that. I'm keeping an eye on the time so that we get through. So there's the kiss, it's gentle. There's the holding, it's gentle. Mom seems to be pleased with herself as a mom. When you're not pleased with your role as a mom or a dad, you can't deliver. I worry about those moms, and unfortunately it falls to them mostly with postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression because it steals their ability to give the nurture. And yes, other people, other caregivers within the family can step in. It's not exactly the same as the matchup between mom and the baby. I love that picture. If you're fortunate enough to be in a partnership, then it's a double dose, right? Because what you see here in terms of connection and touch, you see him have his arm around her. It's kind of like we're a unit. We're together. We're going to be okay because we are us. We have an identity. We know who we are. We know what we stand for. And for many of our kids, they're not quite sure what the family stands for because the family may be, for their own reason, all over the place. Yes, single dads can do it. It's absolutely necessary for some families, for single dads to do it. And the thing about that for me is, for some dads, it's not natural enough. It needs to be taught and nurtured and encouraged. So dads groups are terrific, right? Number one, the dads come because their wives make them. That's all right, I'll take that group. And number two, because what they begin to realize is, oh, there's something more to this that I'm not even aware of. It's safe to be here. I feel safe. I feel connected and I belong. They're going to learn. So dads can do that, and there are some moms, single moms, who have not had that kind of nurturing either. So, safety. That's an example. It's connectedness. We're going to talk about attachment and attachment theory. That's connectedness. That's without even having to think about it, you know you're grounded. You're not in the world alone. You can feel the hand. Have you noticed, and probably with your kids, when they were toddlers and you go for a walk, without even asking, that little hand will come up and grab a finger because they love being grounded, right? They love the connection. That's an important connection right there. That attachment really matters. I love this too. I'm going to go out on a skinny branch on this. That's buffering. I interpret that picture as meaning they're preventing that little girl from seeing something on the screen that they don't want that kid to see. That's our job. Our job is to protect them. Too many, and we're adults in the room, so let's talk about the reality. And if it strikes home, I just ask you to think about it. Too many of our kids are exposed to pornography at a very young age where they can't make it make sense. They just see this flashing picture. We could spend a whole year on social media, but exposure to disruptive ideas, thoughts, pictures gets down deep inside and really cracks open these children. They're not able to soothe themselves or make sense of the world. So that's an example of protectedness. And it can come in a heterosexual couple, homosexual couple, a lesbian couple, a trans couple. None of that matters. That's political. None of that matters. What matters is, are there healthy human adults in the presence of this child to buffer them from the storm, just like the penguin chicks? That's an example of those, I'm going to say, those two moms doing that. Simple act, right? A dad putting a bike helmet on a kid. Simple act, right from the heart. That you care enough that you do what's necessary. Because kids will say, but I don't need that. I don't like that. I don't like the way it looks. But the dad knows that it's safety and it's protectiveness. And what they know is this little guy may not be safe enough on the bike, and you can't guarantee you won't fall, so I'm gonna put pillows around you if I can. I'm gonna put that plastic around you if I can. I gotta keep you safe. That's an example of safety. Another simple one, car seats. I wonder, if it wasn't the law, how many of you would put your kids in a car seat? Now that you know, right? It's kind of like, okay, the law doesn't say I should, but my kid's going to be safer. Just like me wearing a seatbelt. My kid's going to be safer. I'm going to be safer. What do we do day to day to day to keep our kids safe? I don't want to do that. I know, buddy, but I love you. I want you to do that. I'm going to put my helmet on. I'll walk with you. But we do these things to let them know they matter, they're seen, and they're safe. Suntan lotion. If you burn, if you got white skin and you burn, you put suntan lotion on. God, I hate that. I know, but I love you. I want you to be safe. Because I know more about this thing called skin cancer than you do. I'm going to prevent that. So that's your preventative work on this issue of safety and keeping your kids safe. And then there's one more, and that is when things aren't going well, you're able to, in the moment, sit down and say, when you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen. I'll tell you a story that came out of my therapy room on this topic. After school one day, I had a mom and her, probably at the time she was 13, 14. And the mom turned to her in one session and said, listen, I just want you to know, I am always here for you. And the little girl, the 14-year-old, said, that's a lie. And the mom looked at her and said, no, I'm telling you, if you ever need me, I'm here for you. She said, that's a lie. And the mom said, well, why is it a lie? She said, let me give an example. You've told me that before. Last night, I came to you because I was having problems with blah, 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 blah. And we started to talk, and I thought, oh my God. And then you know what happened? Your phone rang, and what you said is, I'll get right back to you. And you took a phone call. I didn't matter. I don't care, Mom, who was on the other end of the phone. I didn't matter. It's about the choices we make. It's whether or not we're giving them the attention they need. Let me give you an example on that, because some of you may be having this issue with the idea of attention. I've sat through enough crisis meetings around kids in school. I was a special education administrator for 30 years. Now work for the Traumatic Loss Coalition, have a private practice. And one of the things that I know is, or one of the things that has happened is, sometimes kids will say frequently, fine, I'm just going to kill myself. Fine, I'm going to kill myself. I've been in enough meetings where the mom or the dad would say, don't pay attention to them. They do that for attention. And my response is, let's give them attention. Now, we don't want them to use that phrase because that's upsetting to us. We can help them change the phrase, but the message is the same. I want you, and you won't listen to me. I am not seen in your presence, and instead you dismiss it as being attention-getting. Nobody left yet. That's great. Worry. That was the phrase for tonight, right? That was the hook that got you in the room. Because there's something called worry and anxiety. Excessive worry and excessive stress about children's well-being has become so prevalent in this country that now it's officially considered a public health issue. There are some good reasons for that. We know, depending upon who you are, where you live, what you look like, that there are parts of our communities that are not safe. I'll give you an example of that from my personal life. In case you haven't recognized it, I'm white, and I grew up white. And I grew up male. I had all the advantages. My mom and dad never went to high school. They didn't make a lot of money, but I had the advantages of being a white male. I was about 50 years old. I was in one of my other districts, and I was having a really good conversation with the principal one day, and he said to me, you know, you grew up so entitled. I was offended. We didn't have any money. It's not what he meant. What he meant was, you can go through life, and your maleness and your whiteness keep you safe. Now, this friend of mine was African American. He still is African American. And he said to me, let me give you a story. He said, when my son, who was the older, started driving, you know what I had to do? And I'm thinking, yeah, I'd teach him, how to go fast enough and slow enough and watch the signs and make good turns. He said, no, I had to teach him what to do when the police pulled him over. I had to teach him to keep his hands on the steering wheel. I had to teach him to say, yes, sir, no, sir. I couldn't make any sudden moves, my kid couldn't, or go into the glove compartment until the police officer told him that. Now, I was shocked because that never occurred to me. It occurs to me now, and I've known that now for 20 plus years. But what I'm saying to you is, we don't see other people as they are. We see other people as we are. We think everybody else is similar to us. And it's so not true. This slide here says there are some families, and within those families, some individuals, some adults, who carry the burden, my word, the burden of excessive worry and excessive stress. So what? If in any one of you or anybody out there looking at the recording of this, if the worry, fret, anxiety, whatever word you want to use, is severe or long-lasting, it can overwhelm you, shut you down. It can create even more stress, the fact that you're stressed. And it increases a child's risk of developing anxiety. That what we can see is a direct line with anxious kids to anxious parents or anxious circumstances. The other thing that's not up here, but I want to share it with you guys, because frequently it comes up in my work, we hate being uncomfortable. We hate being in any kind of pain. We don't like physical pain. We don't like emotional pain. We will do whatever we can do, whatever we need to do to avoid it. And we can't avoid it, then we will step up to numb it, and that's where drugs and alcohol come in. Because they effectively numb the feeling, take you out of the situation, and for a period of time, you don't have it. But as soon as that burns through your body, it's back again. What I'm saying to you is, if you're worried about your kids using drugs or alcohol, it could be an issue of trying to offset the stressors they have in their bodies or the anxiety that they feel, even though there are no other telltale signs. So we look at behavior. Why? All behavior is purposeful. We look at behavior and we try to understand what's behind it. Stress and anxiety is behind it. Quickly, it's not a slide, but I want to tell you about this. There are 3 kinds of stress. Number 1 is positive stress. You can't survive without positive stress. Positive stress is where it gets you the energy that you need to have in order to get to something through something. It's what coaches say to their team about getting pumped for a game. This positive stressor. I get up to my A game. That's good stuff. And then when you don't need the cortisol adrenaline flow, you can calm down. Second kind of stress. It's called tolerable stress. It can begin as positive, but it accumulates in your body. And after a while, it's kind of like, God, I need to go for a run. I need to go to the gym. I need to do some meditation. You recognize your body's accumulation and you do something, if you're aware of it, to get it out of your body. That's good stuff. We do not teach our kids that. Some teachers do. It's becoming part of the well-being of the classroom. Then there's the third level of stress, and that's called toxic stress. Here's what we know is, wherever it's from, it's held in the body. It's not what you just think about. It's what your body feels. I don't think I have this book at the end. The book is called The Body Keeps the Score. The research, the neurological research tells us that it's in the body, and unless we do something intentional by it, 2 or 3 or 4 or 500 different things can happen. We will develop physical symptoms. I'll give you an example. What do you think are the 2 most common reasons why kids go to the nurse during the day? 2. Why do kids ask, can I go to the nurse?
Headache and stomach ache.
That's it, right? Belly aches and headaches. Here's what we know. If you're a headache person, or if you're a gut person and you're in the room, I know you're in the room, and if not, you're probably out in the bigger audience out there. What I know is your body is holding on to toxic stressors, and we feel it in one of 3 places. Here, irritable bowel syndrome people, diarrhea, constipation people, bloating, belly pain, all that, and you see it in kids here. And the third place is here, and we'll get it either pulmonary. They're even seeing a link now between asthma and high toxic stress, pulmonary or cardiac, and people with hypertension, hyperstress will develop heart disease. Unless you're aware of it, you read the symptoms and you listen to what your body's telling you, and you do what you need to do to get rid of it, to burn it out. And I'll share 5 things that you can do about that. But it's the same. See, your little guys at home or your high school kids, they have the same neurobiology. It's less developed, but they react the same way to high toxic stressors. Positive, tolerable, toxic. Here's where the word attachment comes up. And attachment happens right from birth and plays itself out for the rest of your life. Attachment at birth will influence who you marry if you marry. Do you ever say to yourself, never going to marry my father? Now you look at your husband and say, oh my God, I married my father. And I don't even know you, but it seems like that's what happened. Because we get comfortable with a way of being, and we step into that. It's not a thoughtful thing. Yes, there's a romance around it, but when you really take a look at behaviors, this issue of attachment plays out in a couple of ways. Secure attachment, soothing, Maslow's hierarchy. When they melt down, you stay with them and you soothe them. They're seen, they're soothed, they're secure. Everything we've talked about, that's a secure attachment. An insecure attachment or an anxious attachment is exactly what it says. I'm not really sure that if I turn around, when I turn back, my mom's going to be there. I'm insecure about that. I'm anxious about that. And that is a foundation for us with this worry, fret, and anxiety as well. So early attachment. Now, can it change? What can change is with your awareness is what you do about it. Is it hardwired in your brain? Of course. However, here's the secret. Hardwire it differently. When you know what you want to do for you, and including your children or your partner, with a regimen, with a routine, you can change that wiring so that you don't get the same response. Attachment, which is a primary avenue for safety and security. Comments or questions? All right. There it is again, right? Maslow's hierarchy. Excessive worry and anxiety early in life and that interfere with healthy attachment, which is a primary avenue for safety. You don't feel safe and you don't feel connected. Ma'am. Thank you for asking a question, by the way. I wish I could reward that in some way, like give you a prize or something, but
I would love the answer.
what's your comment or question?
The question is that, yes, early life
Yeah.
is not something that we can go back and rework.
Correct.
So then what happens? I have a 14-year-old at home. So
Yep.
now, yes, we can predict or maybe think about, if I rewind, I'll be able to pick up things that, okay, this is where the attachment left. And
Yep.
I got busy or we got busy with work and stuff, but then how do we rebuild it now?
So first of all-
Or just cope it all?
I mean, I got to applaud your honesty, because that's a story for a lot of people in the room, right? That's not just this lady's story. Nobody sets out, let's screw this kid up, but life happens and you get busy. Or you get sick. Or you lose your job and there are tensions around finances. Or your partner wants a divorce. Or, I mean, you could go on for 1,000 ors that create tension in a family. And the legacy, and this is an important word, your behavior creates a legacy that your children inherit. Sorry, it's just the way we are as animals. So then the question is, all right, what did I do wrong? How did I screw my kids up? Is there any way of going back? Absolutely, right? It's not a permanent condition unless you allow it to be so. It's not a permanent condition unless you react to it and don't respond to it. You react meaning stop it. I don't like it when you do that. Go to your room. Oh, here's the big one. Give me your phone. Yeah, you're only smiling because you've tried that and it just doesn't work. Sometimes what?
Sometimes indeed.
If it worked, then your kid is in a better position than for those kids who say, F you. Sometimes it results in that. So the question is, and what can you do? The first thing that I recommend that we always do, I would say this if you're a couple in the therapy room, I would be saying, listen, just go back over kind of the way you parented. 5-year-old, first grade, second grade, third grade, fifth grade, eighth grade, and kind of tell me where you were, because one of the things you could do when you decide, oh, that wasn't a good time for my kid, you can actually change the way they see it. My recommendation? Let's say we're in the therapy room. It doesn't have to happen in the therapy room. It's just that I can control the interaction. I would say, this is a son or a daughter? A daughter. I'll call her Mary. I said, Mary, you were just listening to this conversation I was having with Mom. What she recognizes is there were times when she took her eye off of you to do this. She thought it was the right thing to do, whether it was work or whether it was taking care of grandma or whether. But what she's saying now is maybe, she's asking me, maybe that had a negative effect on you. I'm just wondering if you're willing to share, Mary. What do you think about that? How old is she?
14.
Yeah. You can have that conversation at 14, right? Because when you make the reconnection, it may not happen in the moment, but what she realizes is you realize it. I had this couple call me. This just happened on Friday. They're in their late 70s. They're the parent of 2 adopted boys who are now in their 30s and 40s. And it's only recently that they read some literature that says adopted kids are always kind of searching for their origin. They kind of want to know, A, who was my mom and dad? And B, why'd they give me up? They had gone to their one son and said, we just found this article. We thought it was telling. The son took a look at it, scanned it, and said, it's about time you understood why I never felt like I belonged. He's 37 years old. They adopted him literally at birth. My point is using adoption as an example. Sometimes when kids know that you get it, sometimes when you're able to say, if I had to do it all over again, Mary, I'll tell you, I wouldn't do it that way. I'd do it differently. I am really sorry because I think, listen, your behavior is your behavior. You're responsible for it, but I think I've contributed. Powerful. We as adults don't do that well. We don't do it easily. I tell teachers all the time when I'm doing the training, if you step on toes, if you insult a kid, if you embarrass somebody, if you humiliate them, and you realize that you got to go back and repair that relationship. But here's what that looks like. check yourself on this. So this old wise guy says to you, you just got to kind of go back and let them know. So what you do is this. I'll use your daughter again. Mary, this hypothetical daughter. Say, Mary, could you and I talk? What? I've come to the realization, Mary, that there were things that I could have, Dad and I could have, Mom and I could have done differently that probably would have been really helpful for you. And we didn't. And I want to apologize for that. But I got to tell you, Mary, your behavior is atrocious. And the way you treat me after all that I've done for you, that's not an apology, folks. That's terrible. You just blamed her for your behavior. Own it. Don't put it on them. Remember, all behavior is purposeful. Their behavior has a purpose, and we're trying to figure it out. And that's a kind of a good example. And there's going to be a slide here. I'm going to push through this. Although I love the conversation. I'm going to come back to Mary. Overprotectiveness and attempting to shield and protect your child from situations that provoke your fear often results in Googleitis. And that's what you have, and that's where you Google every damn thing that you can think of to find out what it means, to find out where it is, to find out what the kids are doing, to find out if that street's safe, and what does the parent next door have a record. It's Googleitis.
So we apologize, but do not admit. So we do admit our wrongdoing, but do not let them know that they also did.
Oh no, you can let if they're not following a rule and they're breaking a rule, you can say that. Here's what the rule is. But what this says is the degree of a kid's fear and worry is usually directly related to a parent or parents. They inherit it.
I agree that, and then I just want them to understand my kid that what he did was also wrong. So how we can make it work it out now that. So
Well, you can make it.
And I realize that what I said or did brought to the consequences that we didn't expect it to happen.
Frequently, parents will say, my kid just won't admit that they're at fault. My kid won't admit that they did wrong. My kid won't admit that blah, 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 blah. Now, there's a reason for that. Either A, they don't believe they did, or B, they're not going to give you the satisfaction of telling you that they did, or C, they really don't even know how to say that without being embarrassed or shamed. So you take your time on that, and your comments are more like, boy or girl? Boy. This is John, so this is Mary, this is John. Very anglicized names. I get it. And it's the kind of thing where, without an audience, which means if you have other kids, if you're working with one kid because you want to reconnect, don't do it in the presence of others. Don't do it in an audience. Don't do it. Some parents will even say things like that while the kid is with his friends in the house. Don't do it. It's shaming and embarrassing, and it creates more of a rift. So it's the kind of thing where I would like an opportunity just for you and I to chat. That's what I would like. That's going to be hard for you, John. I know, because you and I have gone at it, we've butted heads. But what I'm asking you is there a way, is there some time that's good for you that you and I can chat? Because I have some things that I've been thinking out that I want to share with you, and I want your reaction. And then you leave it alone. You don't say, okay, give me an answer. Okay, tomorrow, sit down. Don't do that. You let it sit. If you don't get a response, circle back and say, I just want to reinforce something. This is really important for me, but it's important for me with you. And is there a time that you and I can talk? Because you want to get to the point where he opens his ears and allows you to say what you want to say. Now, inside of that, what I have found is I can lead a kid to the edge of that to the point where they say, it wasn't all you, Mom, it was me too. Whoa, what a breakthrough that would be, right? Even if they say, you know why I said that? I said that because you did such and such. But kids will do that, right? Kids have this, wasn't all my fault. They want to blame someone on the parent. Now, typically, they're right. The parent misjudged it, the parent misstated it, the parent missaid it. Because in the moment, that's all you had. But now you're looking back on it, and because you've come to this presentation tonight, like this is a life changer for you. That was a joke. It's the kind of thing where you say, I need to work on that for me. And what I'm hoping is you understand and you can see how much I want this to be better. Some parents will not do that. Some parents will not apologize. Googleitis, the act of constantly searching for answers or finding information to address your problem, your fear. Fears are learned. Fears are learned. Mostly. Fear of falling, maybe not. They're learned from somebody, usually us.
Isn't worry like a level of love? Do you like worry and anxiety are not different? Like, I guess different.
As long as it's not excessive, is what I think.
So like my son recently told me that I need to stop worrying about him and worry more about myself.
He's a genius. Because when you put your, and this is going to be the next slide that we're going to finish on, when you put yourself first, it's a better relationship with him. When you put yourself first, and listen, particularly women, but sometimes men, they're not really good at putting themselves first. They want to take care of everybody else. But unless you're healthy and balanced and regulated, you can't do a really good job in tough moments with your kid. That wasn't bad advice. I don't think he understood what he was saying, but I think it's good advice. The issue here is, if you're more regulated, you worry less. Doesn't mean you don't worry. The first time your kid gets in the car and drives off by themselves, you'll worry. First time your kid goes to a new school, they're going to a sleepover at a friend's house. Are you going to worry? Yeah. Now, the culture is teaching us to do that. How many are worried about school shootings? Damn right I am, and my kids are out of school. I worry about that. I can say to myself, oh, that's over there. Oh, that'll never happen here. I don't know that. I don't know that. So how do I regulate my worry? How do I keep a hold of it? How do I take care of me so that it's modulated? I'm going to put the mic down for a second, then I'll come to you. What you don't want is you don't want high extreme emotions or very, very low emotions, right? High anxiety, high screaming, high intensity, or deep sadness or depression. What you want is emotions to be somewhere in the middle, and what we know is they're like a sine wave. Some days are better than other days. But if you find yourself at the extremes, yeah, then it's an issue of, I don't want to be there. That doesn't feel good. And I don't think I do my best parenting when I'm here or when I'm here. What can I do to regulate that? All right, let's see. Finish your cereal, drink your milk, and be sure to take my worry and anxiety with you to school. Don't forget to pack that. And you know why we laugh? Because we're sitting there thinking, damn, that's what I do with my kids. It just makes a point that says, be aware of what's behind your worry. Be aware of what's behind your fear. Now, if you grew up as a kid in an abusive relationship, that's going to be your point of reference. There's going to be a sense that that might happen to your kid until you figure that out, your lived experience. Until you can find a peace with that, because you can. But we give a high dose of this to our children. Ignoring yourself and your own well-being, ignoring your restlessness, and ignoring your fatigue, your irritability, your headaches, your gut problems, your muscle aches, and your disruptive sleep. Ignore all that, then you're a mess. Then you can't deliver what you believe you should be delivering to your kid. Now, there are 5 things, and then I'll finish this up. The book is called The Deepest Well, written by a pediatrician, Nadine Burke-Harris. 5 things that human beings need, and everywhere I read the research, it comes back to this. The number one of all things is sleep. So while you're sitting there, talk about the quality of your sleep. It's a thing. When your body gets dysregulated because it can't shut down order itself, repair the molecules on a good night's sleep, 7 to 9 hours, consistent basis night after night. When you can't do that, then this is a dysregulated body. Now, I'm going to tell you, for those of you that have middle school, high school kids, if they've got their phone in their room, they're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours. And if you say, please give your phone up, you might as well talk to this coffee cup. But you can have a conversation that says, let me tell you why I'm saying that. And we can work toward it. I'm not asking you to stop tonight. I've allowed it for the past 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Then I'm coming back to you because you had a comment or a question. But what I'm learning now is our bodies are wired such that neurobiologically, we need that rest 7 to 9 hours every night. And what I've got to work out with you is how are we going to get there? What are we going to do as a family to get there? And it can't be nothing. We've got to come to an agreement about something. Let me come to you. What was your comment or question?
Yeah, you talked about like when you allow your kids to go sleep over. For me, I purpose in my mind before I even start having them that I would never allow my kids to sleep over anywhere. Why? Because of a lot of reasons, bad examples that we have seen and heard.
I'm with you.
I don't allow that.
I'm with you. Yeah,
And
it's
wherever they are going again, the second thing, if you're going to a friend's house,
Yes.
I have to go there. I won't say no, but we'll go together and sit and read my book and play. And when you're done, we go home.
That's an attachment issue. That's an overprotectiveness. Because here's what happens. One child or two, they never get an opportunity to practice the good rules you've taught them because you're always there. So they don't problem solve. They don't know how to work stuff out with friends. Because yes, I know you're reading the book with one eye, and you got the other eye on what's going on in the house, right? Now, there again, it's your fear, your worry, which honestly, it has a foundation. It's legitimate. It's real. But because it is, it won't be healthy for your children. Secure attachment means they can wander away and know where you're going to be, and they can come back to you and touch base. Kids with insecure attachment, they don't believe that. So they get real clingy. They cry when mom goes away, right? So secure attachment says, listen, I'm here. I got my eye on you. You're over there playing. Go ahead. I'll be right here. Which is different than you doing an overnight visit and reading your book while they're playing. It's just different.
So how do you take that to
So how to fix that?
Take that to what?
so like monitoring social media and those usage? Do you feel like that's being overprotective?
No.
Or that
That's a safety issue. I don't think that if you trust the adults, now, I have no problem in the grand scheme of things. Your kid says, I want to go over to Johnny's house. And you say, I don't know Johnny, but I'll call the parents and I'll meet the parents because I got to make an assessment of whether or not I think it's safe. Once I make that assessment, you go half hour first time, hour second time, until you begin to feel comfortable that they're good. Because you check in with mom and dad. How are my kids? Did they cooperate? You know, here's what we believe in, blah, 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 blah. So there's a way of kind of moving to a better balance on that with your children. The issue of phone and social media, it's a nightmare for me, for you. Because even with parental controls, our kids are so smart, they know how to get around the controls, right? So therefore, I think the best way is to be able to say that. I'll use my own kid. Josh, it scares me, pal, to know that you're on that phone so much. Listen, I know you got a bunch of friends, and I know you play baseball, and I know that. I trust all that. It's not that I don't trust you. I don't trust the influence on you. Because when there's an influence on you, I know that you're going to have behavior that's different than my behavior for you. So, no, I'm not saying give me your phone. What I'm saying is, what are we going to do about that? So, because if I worry less, you're going to be less anxious. How are we going to work that out? I'll even do that with 5th graders, 4th graders. Maybe not 3rd and 2nd. I know they have phones. 4th and 5th, I'd do that. It's not going away. I did a response one time, It was a suicide response as part of Traumatic Loss Coalition. I did a response. This goes back 15, 20 years. And somebody at the table said, I'm going to check Facebook. And I said, what's Facebook? And they said, oh, it's the social media thing. And I said, you know what, don't even bother. It won't last. That's not going to exist in 2 months. 20 years later, here we are with Facebook, and it's not going away. So what we have to do is we can use control, we can spew our fears on our children, or we can say, we need to work this differently because I'm worried, and when I'm worried, it's not good for you. How can we work that out differently? And what I'm not going to avoid is that simply by skin color, you gotta worry about your babies. I don't know where you're from. I don't know where your language is from. You gotta worry about your babies. I'm a white guy. I didn't have to worry about my babies for that reason. Do you have to? Yeah. Any of you with brown skin or any of you with a different culture, that's what's going on here. All I'm saying is be really good with yourself first. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, intentional practices like yoga, and healthy friendships. Let me do one last slide. You're going to get this. Yeah, here it is. Make yourself a priority. These are the 5 things from that book. Sleep is number 1. Nutrition is number 2. You know when this all fell apart? COVID. Nobody slept, a regular routine, and food was junk. It's whatever you could eat. Ramen noodles all the time became the menu. Sleep, nutrition, this movement, your body doesn't have to go to the gym. You can go for a walk. You can have a bike. You can dance. That will burn up the cortisol that you're storing in your body from the worry, from the fret. Because when you push your body just a little bit, all of a sudden you feel much better. You release the adrenaline and cortisol, and you get this high from really pushing your body. It's a nice feeling for your body, and it brings relief. Yoga, prayer, or meditation, and healthy relationships. I'll tell you this story before we finish up. I say this to teachers. I say, for instance, let me tell you this. Tonight when you go home, there may be somebody on your friends list that you're going to have to call and you're going to have to say, Harry, you're my best friend, but you know what? You're not good for me. Every time I'm with you, I drink too much. Every time I'm with you, blah, blah, blah. So I heard this guy talk tonight, and he said to me, I got to put you on the shelf for a while until you get your act together because you're not good for me. They all laugh. And then I say this, what if you get a phone call from somebody in the room who's friends of yours and says, I can't be friends with you because you're not healthy. I got to have healthy friends around me. Now, I can have a Yahoo friend. You just can't spend a lot of time with them. That's a bad influence. They have an energy around them that's not good for you. So healthy relationships are really important. Kids, middle school, high school, even elementary, kids who have a lot of behavior problems, who do they hang with? Kids with a lot of behavior problems, right? They find each other because they're the only ones that can tolerate that kind of extreme behavior. So let's finish up. What's the last thing here? What do we do if the window is missed? Is it ever too late? Is it ever too late? No, never, never. In a safe environment, in the presence of safe adults, healing is not only possible, but it's likely. That's where change happens. You use your power being an adult, you use your power of being a mom, or power of being a dad. You'll have these later. There's the sanctuary. With your help, your kids can thrive. Together, we are all stronger than some of us. Here are 3 books. These I still go back and reread them. They're authored well, the research is good, and it helps me. I would suggest that instead of going to your friend's house and reading a book, you read this book at home while your kids do an overnight. Or don't let them do an overnight. Say, listen, I'm not ready for that, but I am ready to do this. Why don't you stay until 8? Mom will come pick you up. Why don't you stay until 9? Mom will come and pick you up. Help yourself get there. It's too hard to make big changes all at once. Childhood disrupted. How your biography, how you were raised, what your lived experiences were like, and how it becomes your biology, gut problems, headaches, heart problems, lung problems, and how you can heal. It's a really good book on changing environment so that you can heal. Let me give you an example of how environment affects behavior. Over here, imagine yourself, even if you don't go to church or synagogue, imagine yourself in church and your behavior. Over here, imagine yourself at happy hour and your behavior. Same behavior? Absolutely not. Change the environment, you change the behavior. So it's really important for us to have an effect on the behavior that our kids are growing in. Here's my second book. It's called The Deepest Well, written by the pediatrician, where she talks about those 5 things that we need. Easy reads. If you'd rather listen to her, you can go on a TED Talk or on YouTube and find Nadine Burke-Harris. The Power of Showing Up, written for moms and dads. Love the authors. And this is when you're healthy and you just show up, you make a difference in the lives of your kids. If you're not healthy and you show up, not so good. You got to be healthy yourself. You got to present your, kind of make yourself worth it in order to show up healthy for your children. Yeah. Listen, there's a lot of good stuff, but there's also just a lot of stuff that's just stuff, right? I try to kind of lay out the basic tenets of how it works and why it works and your role and their role. That way you can make better choices for yourself. I'm going to send Joyce the PowerPoint. You know who's here tonight. So she'll put it up on the website. The recording will be up on the website. You can review the stuff as you need to. Yeah?
It's really good. Yes. I really learned a lot.
Terrific. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.